All right, let's dive into the incredible story of the first video game that truly mattered. And what's wild is that it wasn't cooked up in some big corporate lab. Nope, it was born in a university club. And believe me, it ended up changing the world of computing as we know it.
So here's a question for you. How on earth did a ridiculously expensive machine from decades before anyone had a home computer, how did that become the birthplace of the entire video game industry? Well, the answer is an amazing story about the right tech, the right people, and a whole lot of creative energy.
Just let that number sink in for a second. $120,000. In 1959. That was the price tag for a brand new computer from a company called DEC. We're talking about a serious machine, about the size of a big desk. This was not something you'd ever find in someone's house. But this particular machine, it was special. And it landed in exactly the right place at exactly the right time.
You see, for this story to even happen, two crucial things had to come together. First, you needed a revolutionary piece of hardware, the PDP-1 computer. And second, you needed the one-of-a-kind, super collaborative culture that was bubbling up around it at MIT.
Okay, so this really shows you why the PDP-1 was such a game changer. Before it, computers like the big IBM mainframes were basically giant calculators. You'd feed them a stack of punch cards, go get a coffee, and come back hours later for an answer. But the PDP-1, it was built for a conversation. It was designed for real-time interaction. It was fast, it was responsive, and, this is the big one, it had a screen. That circular display wasn't just a monitor, it was a canvas for a completely new way of thinking about computers.
And here's that second key ingredient, the culture. Over at MIT's Tech Model Railroad Club, yeah, you heard that right, a unique community had formed. They called themselves hackers. Now, forget what that word means today. Back then, a hacker was someone who was just passionately obsessed with figuring out how technology worked, experimenting with it, and pushing its limits just for the pure joy of it. This spirit of sharing and collaboration was the perfect soil for our story to grow.
So, you've got the machine, and you've got the culture. The stage is set. A few researchers see this new PDP-1 and get a brilliant idea. They decide to create something that would really show off what this thing could do. But their grand plan hit a major snag almost immediately.
These guys, Steve Russell, Martin Greats, and Wayne Winnington, they weren't thinking small. They were completely caught up in the excitement of the space race and loved their science fiction. They didn't just want another boring tech demo. No way. They pictured a real game, a fast-paced, competitive space battle between two players.
But then, life happens. Before the project even got off the ground, Wayne Whitenin got called up for military service. Martin Greats got swamped with other work. And just like that, the huge, ambitious task of programming this entire game fell onto the shoulders of one guy, Steve Russell. But Russell didn't back down. He just dove in. And by early 1962, he had a working version with two very distinct ships, the tough little Wedge and the sleek Needle. And get this, it was incredibly sophisticated for its day. The ships didn't just skate around, they moved with realistic physics. You had to account for momentum, you had to aim your torpedoes, and you only had so much fuel. The core of a great game was already there.
Now, Russell knew his prototype was just the start. So in the true hacker spirit, he didn't lock it away. He shared it. He brought his code to the TMRC, and what began as one man's massive project was about to become a masterpiece built by a community. And this is where the magic of that culture really shines. People just started jumping in. Dan Edwards added a central star with a real gravitational pull that could suck you in if you weren't careful. Peter Sampson thought the random star background was boring, so he coded an accurate map of the actual night sky. Robert Saunders realized the controls were clunky, so he went and built the world's first ever custom joysticks for a video game. Even Martin Greats came back to add these awesome explosion effects. It was a total team effort.
And they just kept adding features we totally take for granted today. They put in a hyperspace button, basically a panic button that could save you or accidentally blow you up. They added a scoring system. They made it restart automatically so the action never stopped. They even gave each player 3 lives. Spacewar was becoming a fully fledged, polished experience. By April of 1962, Spacewar was done, and it was an absolute phenomenon at MIT. But its influence was just getting started. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was a blueprint for a new way to innovate, and its ripples were about to spread way, way beyond that one university.
This quote really gets to the very soul of what Spacewar was all about. The game was never sold. Nobody owned it. It wasn't a product, it was a gift. shared freely with anyone who could get their hands on a PDP-1. This idea, this open, collaborative spirit, would become a foundation of the digital revolution.
And the ripple effect is just mind-blowing. The game spreads to other universities, where a programmer named Ken Thompson discovers it. He loves it so much, he makes his own space game. But when he tries to move his game to a different computer, he gets so incredibly frustrated with the bad software that he helps create a brand new operating system to fix the problem. An operating system you might have heard of? It's called Unix. I mean, think about that. There is a direct line from this student game project to the very DNA of modern computing.
So we end on this one last thought. The first truly great video game wasn't made to make money. It was born from passion, from pure curiosity, and a spirit of working together. So what does that say about where real innovation comes from? And just imagine how different our digital world, our phones, the internet, everything, might be today if that first spark of genius had been locked away behind a paywall instead of being shared freely with everyone.